there, everyone, and welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic that's so important for anyone looking to maximize their rental income. Pricing rental repairs correctly. It can really make a huge difference in your bottom line.
Yeah, absolutely, Sarah. It's one of those areas that can trip up even seasoned investors if they're not careful.
Right? You want to make sure you're not overestimating costs, but you also don't want to underprice and end up losing money.
Exactly. There's a balance to strike, and we'll be sharing some practical tips on how to get it just right.
Plus, we'll talk about common pitfalls to avoid and how to assess repairs without breaking the bank.
And we'll also touch on the importance of keeping your tenants happy while managing your expenses.
That's key. Happy tenants often lead to longer tenancies, which is great for your cash flow.
For sure. It all ties back to your overall strategy and long-term wealth building, doesn't it?
Absolutely. So let's jump right in. Mike, can you start by sharing some of the typical mistakes investors make when pricing repairs?
Sarah, when we talk about pricing rental repairs correctly, it's really about more than just fixing a property. It's about securing a future, especially for those of us over 40. Timing is everything, right?
Absolutely, Mike. I think a lot of people in that age group are starting to think more seriously about retirement and how their investments will support them through those years.
Right, and in today's economic climate, with inflation creeping up like it has, it's really crucial to ensure that your properties are not just maintained, but also that the repairs you're making are cost-effective. You don't want to overinvest, but you also don't want to cut corners.
Exactly. I've heard stories from investors who, in an effort to save a few bucks, ended up spending much more later on because they didn't address issues properly the first time.
Yeah, I remember a client of mine. Let's call him Tom. He had a rental property where the roof was leaking. Instead of getting a professional opinion, he decided to patch it up himself, thinking it would save him money. Well, a few months later, he found out that the underlying issue was much worse, and he ended up having to replace the entire roof. Not only did that cost him more, but it also took time away from his other investments.
That's such a good example, Mike. It really highlights how an initial saving can turn into a much bigger expense. Plus, for someone who's planning for retirement, those unexpected costs can really throw a wrench in the works.
Exactly. And beyond just the financial side, there's also that emotional aspect. People want to feel secure knowing their investments are sound. If they're constantly worrying about whether their properties are going to need major repairs, it can really add to their stress, especially as they approach retirement.
Right. And with the current trends in the market, where we see shifts in rental demand, it's critical to be proactive. Investors need to be aware that if they don't manage their properties well, they might not attract quality tenants or keep the ones they have.
And that's where pricing repairs correctly becomes essential. If you can keep your properties in great shape, you can command higher rents, which in turn helps offset inflation. It's a smart strategy for long-term wealth building.
Yeah, it's almost like having a safety net. If you know your properties are well maintained, you can feel more secure about your financial situation. Plus, you're not just building wealth for yourself, but also for your family and future generations.
Exactly, Sarah. I had another client, let's call her Lisa. She invested in a multifamily property and took the time to properly assess and price repairs. She was able to keep her tenants happy and, as a result, maintain consistent rental income. When she decided to sell, she got a much higher price than she expected because the property was in excellent condition.
That's a fantastic story. It shows how a little upfront work can pay off big time. It's not just about what you're spending now, but also how that investment affects your return down the line.
Absolutely. And for those over 40, it's particularly important to think about legacy. Many are looking to pass wealth down to their children or grandchildren. Ensuring that your properties are in good condition can make a big difference in inheritance.
Right. And if you've got properties that are well maintained, it's easier to transfer that wealth. You wouldn't want your kids to inherit a money pit.
Definitely not. And let's not forget about the psychological side of all this too. Knowing that you have reliable income from well-maintained properties can provide a level of comfort, especially as you think about retirement.
Yes. Financial security means so much, especially when facing the uncertainties of life. It gives you peace of mind, knowing that you've set yourself and your loved ones up for success.
And that's the goal, isn't it? To create a legacy that lasts beyond your own lifetime. But, this whole process requires a willingness to invest time and resources up front.
Right, and that can be daunting, but with the right strategies in place, it doesn't have to be overwhelming.
Exactly. And the good news is there are ways to make this easier. So, transitioning into some core strategies for pricing those repairs correctly.
Yes, let's dive into that. What's the first thing our listeners should keep in mind?
So, when it comes to pricing rental repairs correctly, one of the first things I always recommend is to have a clear understanding of the property's current condition. Doing a thorough inspection can really save you headaches down the road.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of investors underestimate that part. Like, if you're looking at a property that needs a lot of work, you really want to know what you're getting into, right?
Exactly. I usually suggest creating a checklist of all the potential repairs and upgrades you might need. It helps to break it down into categories like structural, mechanical, and cosmetic repairs.
Right, and then you can estimate costs for each category. I had a friend who bought a fixer-upper, and he just assumed the cosmetic stuff wouldn't be too bad. But then it turned out to be a lot more than he thought.
Yeah, that's a classic mistake. It's easy to overlook things like outdated plumbing or electrical systems. A good rule of thumb is to budget about 1% of the property's value for annual maintenance and repairs. So if you have a $200,000 property, you should set aside around $2,000 each year for those unexpected costs.
That makes sense, and it's a good way to plan ahead. But what about when you're evaluating a deal? Do you have any specific strategies for that?
For sure. One of my favorites is the 50% rule. It's pretty straightforward. Basically, you estimate that about 50% of your gross rental income will go towards operating expenses. So if you're expecting $1,500 a month in rent, you'd want to budget about $750 for expenses.
And that leaves you with the other half for your mortgage and profit, right?
Exactly. And then you can take it a step further by calculating the cap rate. It gives you a good idea of the property's potential return on investment. You take your net operating income, subtracting your expenses from your rental income, and divide that by the property's purchase price.
Can you give an example of that?
Sure. Let's say you buy a property for $300,000. If your annual rental income is $18,000 and your operating expenses are around $9,000, your net operating income would be $9,000. So you divide that by $300,000, which gives you a cap rate of 3%.
So a 3% cap rate might not be that attractive, right?
Exactly. It's generally considered a low return. Most investors look for cap rates around 8% or higher, depending on the market. It's all about finding that sweet spot where the numbers make sense for you.
And I guess that's where different property types come into play?
For sure. Single-family homes might have lower cap rates, but they can be more stable in terms of tenants, whereas multifamily properties might offer better cash flow, but with a bit more risk.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to your investment strategy and what you're comfortable with.
Exactly. And whatever property type you choose, having a solid deal evaluation checklist can be a game changer. It helps you stay organized and ensures you don't miss any critical details.
What kind of things do you include in your checklist?
Well, I usually start with the property's location. Then look at the neighborhood's rental rates, vacancy rates, and any upcoming developments. After that, I check the property condition, estimated repair costs, and, of course, the potential cash flow.
That's a comprehensive approach. Do you ever factor in potential appreciation when evaluating a property?
Definitely. While it's not something you should rely on, it's good to consider. Historical trends in the area can give you insights, but always remember that past performance doesn't guarantee future results.
Right, and it's especially important to be realistic about your expectations.
Exactly. And speaking of expectations, let's talk about financing options. Because how you finance a property can really impact your cash flow and overall profitability.
That's a great point. What are some common financing options investors over 40 might consider?
Well, traditional mortgages are always an option, but they might not be the best fit for everyone. Some investors might look into using a HELOC, home equity line of credit, if they have equity in their primary residence. It can provide flexible access to funds.
And that can be useful for quick repairs or upgrades.
Exactly. Then there are also hard money loans, which can be beneficial for short-term projects. Just keep in mind they often come with higher interest rates.
And it's crucial to factor that into your calculations, right?
Absolutely. You don't want to get caught off guard by those costs. And don't forget about seller financing either. Sometimes sellers are open to financing the property themselves, which can be a win-win for both parties.
That's a great option if you can negotiate it.
For sure. Just be sure to have everything in writing and consult with a real estate attorney to protect yourself.
Good advice. So now that we've covered pricing repairs and evaluating deals, what are some common pitfalls to avoid when it comes to repairs and maintenance?
Well, one big pitfall is underestimating repair costs. If you think something will cost $500, it's often wise to budget a little more, just in case.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Another one is neglecting regular maintenance. It's easy to push things off, but staying on top of minor repairs can save you from much bigger headaches down the line.
Definitely. And I think it's also important to keep a good relationship with your contractors.
Absolutely. Having reliable, trustworthy contractors can make a huge difference in your project timelines and costs.
Well, it sounds like we've covered a lot of ground.
We really have. I hope our listeners feel more equipped to price their rental repairs correctly and evaluate their deals wisely. So, one of the biggest pitfalls I see with new investors is over-leveraging. I mean, it's easy to get carried away when you see properties that look like they could bring in great returns, right?
Absolutely. It's like the excitement of getting into the game can sometimes cloud judgment. Can you share an example of that?
Sure. I had a client, let's call him Tom. He found this property that was a bit of a fixer-upper, but he was convinced he could turn it around quickly. He decided to finance it heavily, thinking he'd cash flow from day one. But then, unexpected repairs popped up.
Oh no, that's the worst.
Right? The roof needed replacing, and the plumbing was a disaster. So instead of making money, he was bleeding cash.
That must have been so frustrating for him.
It really was. And on top of that, he didn't account for the time it would take to get everything done. He was so focused on the numbers that he ignored the reality of the work involved.
Yeah, and that can really mess with your cash flow.
Exactly. Which brings me to another common mistake. Ignoring cash flow entirely. I mean, it's the lifeblood of any investment.
Right. If you're not keeping track of that, you're setting yourself up for trouble.
I had another client, let's call her Lisa. She bought a duplex thinking it would be a great way to build wealth. But she didn't really pay attention to how much the mortgage, taxes, and maintenance would eat into her profits. She thought, I'll just rent it out and everything will be fine.
So she didn't have a solid plan in place.
Exactly. When the first tenant moved out, she realized how much it cost to find a new one, not to mention the repairs needed to make the unit rent-ready again.
That's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah, and it really highlighted the importance of having a solid financial cushion. You can't just rely on the rental income to cover everything without a buffer.
For sure. And what about bad tenants? That's another huge pitfall.
Absolutely. I've seen it time and again. You think you found a great tenant, but then they stop paying rent or start damaging the property. I had a friend who rented out a single-family home, and he was so eager to get someone in that he skipped the background checks.
Oh no.
Yeah. He ended up with tenants who were consistently late on rent, and the place was left in shambles when they finally moved out.
That must have cost him a fortune.
It did, both in repairs and loss of income. It's crucial to take the time to vet your tenants properly.
Definitely. What about the timing of the market?
Timing the market is another tricky area. Many investors think they can predict when to buy and sell, but the reality is the market can be unpredictable.
Right.
I had a client, let's say his name is Frank. He waited for what he thought was the perfect moment to buy. Prices were high, but he thought they would drop. Only they didn't.
So he lost out on potential opportunities?
Exactly. He ended up waiting too long, and by the time he felt it was safe to buy, prices had skyrocketed even more.
That's a real eye-opener.
And it's a reminder that sometimes it's better to focus on the fundamentals rather than trying to time the market perfectly.
For sure.
Another mistake I see is overlooking hidden costs. Those sneaky little expenses that can add up quickly.
Like what?
Well, things like property management fees, Maintenance costs and even insurance rates can vary significantly. I had a client who thought he was getting a great deal on a property, but then he found out the insurance was way higher than expected because of the area it was in.
That's a tough blow.
It really is. If you don't factor those costs in from the start, it can really cut into your profits.
So what's the key takeaway here?
Well, it all comes down to doing your homework. Make sure you have a comprehensive understanding of your investment, the costs involved, and the potential risks.
Right, and also be prepared for the unexpected.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for help or seek advice from experienced investors. There's a lot of value in learning from others, mistakes.
It's about building a strong foundation, isn't it?
Yes, and remember, it's okay to start small. Test the waters before diving in headfirst.
That's great advice.
And if you do find yourself in a situation where things aren't going as planned, don't panic. There are always ways to recover, whether that's reevaluating your strategy or seeking out additional resources.
Sounds like a solid plan.
It really is, and the more you learn and adapt, the better equipped you'll be to handle future investments.
Definitely. So, as we wrap this up, what's the next step for someone looking to avoid these pitfalls?
Well, start by educating yourself. Seek out resources, read books, network with other investors, and always keep a close eye on your finances.
Great advice, Mike. Thanks for sharing these insights.
My pleasure, Sarah.
I think our listeners will find this really helpful.
I hope so.
All right, let's move on to the next part of our discussion.
All right, Sarah. So let's dive into some immediate steps our listeners can take right now to price those rental repairs correctly.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think starting with a checklist could really help, right?
Absolutely. First up, you might want to create a simple checklist for the common repairs you face. Think about things like plumbing, electrical issues, or even cosmetic fixes like painting. Just list them out.
That's a good idea. And once you have that, you can start estimating costs for each repair. It helps to research online, like on Zillow or using Rentometer, right?
Exactly. Those platforms can give you a ballpark figure for what similar properties are renting for in your area, which is super helpful.
And don't forget about local MLS access if you have it. That can provide detailed insights on recent sales and rental prices. Super handy.
For sure. And then there's the Bigger Pockets calculator. It's a great tool for analyzing potential cash flow and estimating repair costs as part of your overall investment.
Oh, I love that one. It's user-friendly and really helps you see the bigger picture. Plus, you can input different scenarios to see how repairs impact your bottom line.
Right, and if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, start small. Maybe analyze just one deal per week. This way, you're not doing too much at once, but you're still making progress.
That's a great tip. And I think joining a local real estate meetup can also be beneficial. You can share your checklist and get feedback from others who are in the same boat.
Exactly. Networking like that can provide real-world insights and maybe even connections to reliable contractors who can give you quotes on repairs.
Speaking of quotes, it's always a good idea to get multiple estimates for any significant repairs, right? It just gives you a better perspective on what the market rate is.
Totally. And while you're at it, keep track of these quotes. You can use a simple spreadsheet or even an app like DealCheck to compare them side by side.
Apps can really streamline that process. And let's not forget about reading. There are some great books out there on real estate investing and property management.
Yes. One book I often recommend is The Book on Managing Rental Properties by Brandon Turner. It covers everything from pricing to managing repairs.
That sounds like a must-read. And maybe we could suggest some podcasts, too? There are quite a few focused on real estate investing.
Definitely. Bigger Pockets Real Estate Podcast is a classic. Super informative, and they cover a wide range of topics.
Oh, and the Real Estate Guys radio show is another good one. They often have guests who share practical tips and experiences.
Right, and the key is to start building those habits, like analyzing deals every week and connecting with other investors. It doesn't have to be a huge commitment, just consistent effort.
Exactly. And over time, you'll find it becomes easier. You'll develop your eye for pricing repairs and understanding the market.
And remember, it's all about starting where you are. Even if you just take one small step today, it's progress.
So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together.
Wow. What a journey we've had today, Sarah.
Absolutely, Mike. It's been really enlightening. So just to recap, we talked about how important it is to get those rental repairs priced correctly, right?
Yeah, and one of the key takeaways was understanding the difference between necessary repairs and upgrades. You don't want to overinvest in your properties unless it's really going to add value.
Exactly. And we also mentioned the significance of getting multiple quotes. That way, you're not just taking the first number that comes your way. It's all about ensuring you're making informed decisions.
And let's not forget the importance of building relationships with contractors. A good contractor can not only give you better pricing, but also help you in future projects.
Right. Trusting your team can really streamline the process. Plus, we discussed how keeping a maintenance reserve can save a lot of headaches down the line, too.
Yeah, having that cushion is crucial. It allows you to handle repairs without feeling stressed or financially strained.
So for anyone listening out there, remember that pricing repairs correctly is a vital part of managing your rental properties. It's all about maximizing profits and minimizing stress.
And as we wrap up, just think about the bigger picture. Building wealth through real estate is a journey. It takes time, but with the right strategies, you can definitely get there.
Absolutely. If you found today's episode helpful, please like, subscribe, and let us know your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have in the comments.
And hey, if you know someone over 40 who's looking to invest in property, share this episode with them. You never know who might benefit from this advice.
Next time, we're diving into Landlording 101, First-Time Landlord Guide. So make sure to tune in for that.
Looking forward to it.
Me too. Until then, take care and keep investing in your future.
Bye for now.
Bye.